A couple weeks ago, we had a tornado hit our property, or what we think was a tornado, and it left a lot of tree damage in its path. And so what we're gonna do today is we're going to make some wattle garden beds using some of the branches from the fallen trees.
Elena wouldn't let me put all the trees just directly in the burn pile after we cut the logs and the stuff that's worth keeping for firewood off. She wanted to use all of the tree that we possibly could. I can't argue with that. So we piled up all the tops sort of behind us and have been processing some of these long skinny sticks off the top of them, cutting off the leaves, and these will eventually weave into what's known as a wattle bed. I was really never familiar with what this was. Here's some pictures of some nicely constructed wattle beds, which hopefully we can make a similar version of, but basically it's woven sticks around vertically driven stakes, which are also made out of sticks. So let's get a move on it and see if we can finish cleaning up this pile of tops and make ourselves some wattle beds.
The sticks that we're aiming to collect are about 1 inch thick in diameter maximum. This is because this is going to have to bend slightly around those vertical posts since we are weaving them. The two different trees that we are harvesting majority of the sticks from, one was a hickory and one was a maple. This isn't necessarily the ideal tree to be using for this purpose, but we're gonna give it a try and see what happens. Of course, this was my genius idea to make these garden beds. I don't know exactly where I first saw wattle beds. It's not something that I've seen recently on social media of any sort. It's just something that I had seen a long time ago in the past. So I did some YouTubing and Google research to determine how we're going to do this. Like I said, the trees that we're using are not typically used for making these beds, but we're gonna give it our best shot. Here's a large pile of sticks that we already processed before. This wheelbarrow back here that you see, I filled with some of the leaves and smaller branches, and we are going to fill the bottom of the beds with some of this stuff. This is gonna decompose over time, and it's gonna make some really nice rich soil for us to use in the future. This looks a little bit chaotic and like a big mess, but I promise there's a method to the madness.
I've basically been just pulling branches out of the big piles that I dumped here with the skid steer, and that's my trash pile. It's an organized chaos. At the end of this, I'm going to take the skid steer and rake all this up. We actually borrowed Travis's, our excavation contractor's York rake again, and I have a plate that can go on the front of the skid steer to mount tractor 3-point attachments. So I'm going to use that to sort of rake all these leaves up, because otherwise it will kill whatever grass we have here. So that'll be the very last thing we do. And we'll stick all those leaves in the compost pile.
The compost pile isn't sophisticated whatsoever. It's literally just a giant pile. We eventually will build a more structured compost pile. We're kind of waiting until we get our chickens over here, get our garden more established, and then we will build a more structured compost.
Here's our general process. Once I've identified a stick that at its thickest is about 1 inch, I'll cut it there. I'll try to keep it generally straight, except if it's 90 degrees, I'm keeping those for like corners. And then either you can break these off, this one breaks kind of easily, or lop them.
Or use these shears.
That works too.
Which also, these Fisker shears suck really bad. We'll put a link to ones that actually work.
Not all Fisker shears are created equal. Everything we've used from that brand has actually been really nice, but for some reason these shears are just not a good design whatsoever.
Not designed well. Okay.
And so there's one down of hundreds I think we've done already.
This definitely is a lot more work than just cutting up the brush and putting it in a burn pile, but we were both really upset about all of these trees being destroyed by the storm. A lot of these trees have probably been here for close to 100 years, and we really wanted to honor them and give them a second life, and so these beds are going to be a great way to do that. The skid steer has probably been the most valuable tool that we've had during this entire project and since owning this property. It's come in handy for cleaning up the property in numerous ways, but also just handling material and so many things with the house.
All right, we've successfully transported the little skinny sticks, and now we're on to the stakes. We got to make those.
So the first thing we have to do is decide the thickness the stake should be and the length. So how tall do we want the beds? Realistically, they're going to be about 12 inches off the ground.
12?
What do you think?
I would say you want them like waist high.
Oh man, that's going to be a lot of branches. I don't think we have enough branches. I think as long as it's
got to
like
be high enough that you can
inches.
tell that there's something there. I would say 18 to 20 inches at least.
Yeah, I think about 18 because thing is whenever you weave the branches, as the branches dry, there's gaps that form in the beds and you have to push them all down and add more branches. So even if we have enough now, those are gonna dry over time and we're gonna have to add more on top. It's not a big deal. I mean, we have an endless amount of trees, but how much do we need to drive them into the ground?
I don't know. The problem is this is hard ground. I'm just worried about breaking the stick trying to get it in the ground even 2 inches.
Okay, so maybe we should just make like 3 to start and try it and then go from there.
Sure.
So we don't waste time.
Experiment.
Okay. So what about how thick?
Just got to be starting enough that it doesn't break when we hammer it.
Well, and I think we should make them longer than we think, because then we can, like, this is not going to be...
Yeah, you can always trim the top off at the end.
But I also brought the post hole, or the post driver.
Yeah.
In the video I was watching, the girl was using that. Even though it was like down here, she was using that.
Really? Okay.
So we could try it.
Don't try this at home. A bandsaw is probably the ideal tool for making these stakes, but I gotta say the table saw did a good job. It looks a lot more dangerous than it actually is. Unlike ripping something like a 2x4, the fence is not pinching the workpiece against the blade, which is what causes kickback, and my hands are a good 2 feet away from the blade at all times. So this actually was a lot easier than it looks like.
I think that's good where you're at.
Go right here?
Yeah, and then like right here.
Take a step back or so. Is that about 10 foot?
Try the T-post pounder.
It's going in. It's just a huge stake. Okay, I'll try that. Yeah, slam it in the ground.
Cool.
I wouldn't build a house on it, but it'll do.
This one. So maybe the key is we got to get it started with the... This one's getting stuck in the... Okay.
Yeah, that's the problem I had.
I think I'm gonna need to start this with the hammer.
Go for it.
I only work when I'm on film, people. JK. I'm the actual worst at swinging a hammer. Georgie wants a shot at hammering in one, so.
George's about to get hammered.
Gave him the hammer to give him a shot. All right, George, you're up.
All right. Ready? We're gonna hit this stick in. Ready?
Oh, he looks so sad. He says, Daddy, I'm not strong enough.
Ready? Good boy. Oh my gosh, we have a construction doggo.
He's scared.
We have a construction dog.
He says, I prefer being supervisor.
Oh, look, he wants it. He wants it. You want the hammer? Get it. Get the hammer. Boop.
Is Daddy being silly?
Say yes,
Aww.
he is. Say yes, he's being silly.
Off to make some more steaks.
Once we had the corner stakes in place, I spaced the middle stakes about 18 inches apart. I basically just made them evenly spaced between the 2 end stakes.
George has been very hard at work, and we have a small stick fortress appearing out of the ground. This is pretty cool.
Thanks to George.
Thanks, George. And now I guess it's time to start weaving stuff. So there's the first one laid right there.
The concept is when you go one way with your weave, you then have to take a stick and start from the other end. So we do like wide on both sides, wide here, wide on both sides.
Is it really that exact?
I don't think it matters that much,
Okay.
but.
Let's just weave it in. We'll be good.
So see how we went on either side with the skinny ends here? Now we're gonna start with the thick end over here, right? And go like this.
Initially, we were weaving the sticks on each side individually, but we realized that it was better to weave it the full way around the bed in layers, and that worked a lot better to make sure that we were evenly distributing all of the sticks.
We weren't able to get the entire wattle bed done in one day, so we're back here today working on it. And the first thing we're gonna do is kind of come around and jump on the sides to see if we can push down some of the dry sticks. I'm not gonna be too rough with it, just kind of trying to push it down and close up any of those gaps.
We also replenished our pile of sticks because this thing really soaks up a lot of sticks. It takes a lot more than you think it does. So another few hours of tree processing and we have a new fresh supply of sticks. This should be able to let us finish our bed that we started and do a second one.
So we start the stick on one side, weave it around the branches, and then we have this little skinny end here, goes around the edge.
One of the most important skills we've learned as homesteaders is to be as resourceful as possible. We always are trying to reuse and repurpose things into new and fun ways. This is not only just a way to save money, but it also allows you to express creativity in a fun and useful way.
So we're almost finished with the bed, and it looks so cool when it's this high. If you were a little kid, this would be so fun to make into a fort if you like kept building it up even taller and then put a little roof on it. It's really, really cool and fun. Now we're gonna chop off the ends and make it look all nice.
Those guys getting the snip.
I don't think there's any exact science to this.
Just don't trim them too short and they'll fall off the corner stake.
And then these little cutoff pieces, we're just gonna throw in the middle. Woohoo!
Reduce, reuse. As we were weaving all the sticks in, we were talking about how long we actually think this is gonna last. Guesses were between 2 and 7 years. Not really sure, to be honest. If you've ever done a fence or a garden bed out of this technique, let us know how long it lasted for you and what it's looking like. We're thinking the fences last quite a bit longer than the garden beds just because there's no direct soil contact other than at the stakes. So we're gonna see, and we also even could build a bed of stones around this eventually. We have a lot of rocks on this property, so eventually most of the garden structures are probably gonna incorporate a lot of rocks to use some of those up. Elena just stumbled across these metal stakes that have been sitting here too. These are 3-foot long concrete nail stakes, and we brought a bunch of 1-footers as well because we were not sure whether or not this stick technique of driving sticks in the ground would actually hold up and hold the sticks. Luckily it did, but we were going to maybe use these steel stakes instead. They still came in handy though because we have so many rocks in this ground. Sometimes I was hitting a rock when I was driving these posts in, and so then I would just take one of those guys and hammer that in to basically puncture that rock down in the hole and allow me to drive the wood in.
Can we just talk about how we had a cold spurt and now it's warm, and now the stink bugs are out in force and they keep landing on my head. It's not fun because I'm like, oh shoot, they're in my hair. Not fun.
Stink bugs are out of control right now.
They're out of control. We have the Harbor Freight tent on the property, and when you walk in the tent, it smells like stink bugs because there's so many of them. Not fun. I hope it gets cold again soon. Anyways, the one thing that we learned as we were getting closer to the top of the bed is that it's a lot more critical to have straighter sticks than we thought. I guess when we first started the bed, we must have had pretty straight sticks, but as we got towards the top, we were using ones that had more bends and curves in them, and they basically just don't want to stay in place because you're trying to make tension by weaving, but if they're not straight enough, it doesn't really work. So that's one thing to keep in mind is when you're harvesting sticks, try to make them as straight as possible.
And just like that, we got ourselves a garden bed.
It did not go that quick, but it looks really nice with the edges cut off. The next step is going to be filling the actual bed. So we're going to put down a layer of cardboard, put down some sticks and leaves, and then fill it up with some really high quality soil. I'm not sure if we're going to get to that this fall or if that will be a spring project, but it's done and it's about ready for plants. We're not exactly sure where we want our garden to be on the property yet, but we put this one bed along the back of the property and we're thinking about kind of meandering the beds along the tree line here. The only bad thing is that we have a lot of deer in this area, so if we do that, we'll have to plant some deer-resistant varieties since we're not really planning on putting a fence here. We're thinking about doing perennial flowers that are deer-resistant in this bed, and then we probably have enough sticks for one more bed, so we'll probably play around with that for the next year, and then if they hold up pretty well, maybe we'll continue them onwards. Like we mentioned, we're not sure exactly how long this will last, but if you're on a budget and you're looking to make a raised garden bed, this could be a good option for you. In general, I think that this method of building things is just kind of cool. So it could be really cool to make like a privacy fence out of sticks like this, or just like a tiny little garden fence to keep rabbits out. There's some really cool projects that you could do. One thing that I've been thinking about doing is building Georgie a little dog house. So basically building a 3-sided structure with a little roof. So maybe I'll get to that sometime this winter or early in the spring.
She is so funny. Look at her, she's fake gardening to test the height out. Look at her garden, look at her go. What are you doing?
I'm harvesting.
You're harvesting? Oh, she's harvesting. Oh my gosh. She is too funny. She is too funny.